Yo, what is up? It is your boy MARKIA. I'm doing this video for all my producer friends and engineers that have hit me up wanting to know what the breakdown of my new track Repo is. What did I put in this track to make it sound like it does? So I'm gonna do this video for you guys. This is my beat breakdown of Repo. If you haven't checked out the song, check it out now. It's the video clip is available on YouTube. The track is available on Spotify. It's on Apple Music, Tidal, you name it. It's all there. So let's get into it, shall we? All right. So first and foremost, where this track started was actually with a sample. The sample is actually a track from the 1970s, and it's by an artist named Reg Tisley, and the track is called Warlock. This particular song, I'll play it for you now just so you can hear it, but you may be able to recognize this same sample from other songs you may have heard in the past. So that sample in itself has been used from everyone from Jay-Z to Drake, Soulja Boy, Cameron. It comes from an era of hip-hop music where producers like Kanye and Just Blaze use a whole lot of like soul samples with like really lush like horns, and I wanted to kind of recreate that. Now I could have like played some VST instruments and got some like horn sections and things like just played out through some MIDI, but it wouldn't sound as good as this. And what I mean by good is not particularly to do with like frequency or whatever it is, but there's a certain feel that comes from like the old school sounding samples because they were actually recorded to tape. Now, having said that, I took this sample and loaded it up into the MPC. Now, in line with that idea of tape and warmth, the MPC to me personally is the benchmark for sampling and drum programming. And look, I know a lot of you producers out there, some of the younger dudes will use Machine. That's totally fine. Use whatever you want to use. But for me, the MPC created some of the greatest hip hop songs in history. There's something amazing about this piece of equipment because it has a certain warmth and a unique swing that you just cannot get and can't be recreated with any other VST. I don't know what they put in this thing for it to sound this good, but for me, it just takes me back to when I was younger and hearing some of those mid-90s, early 2000 hip-hop tracks. So what I did was I loaded the song up in the MPC. I pitched it down, and as you can see, the BPM is 110. Some of you producers might choose 55. Whatever suits you was all good. And I just cut up the sample, and so basically these are the slices for the sample. So what you can see from my timeline, I've only used really like 6 like slices in the whole thing, really. All right, so how this all sounds together. And that sample pretty much makes up about 80% of the song. I didn't want to add too much to it. The only difference is at the start of the song you might recognize I just filtered it in, so I just kind of added this filter to kind of just take out all the top end and then kind of just bring it in. That's the only thing I've done to the sample other than cut it up. The reason why I've cut this up is because I didn't want it to sound like the other songs that may have used this sample previously. So if you couldn't pick the sample, I'm glad. All right. The next part of this is the drums. Now, the drums with this, I did go for a trap sounding pattern, and I did that to try and like kind of fuse like the old with the new. But what I did was I tried to make it kind of sound a bit more like a legitimate like drum kit. First and foremost, what I've got here with my kick. So that kick actually probably punches a little bit lower than it really should. So to get a bit technical, there's a sweet spot in that kick, which is around about, it's about 40 to 60 hertz on the frequency range, and I've kept that in there because there's certain parts of the song that there's no 808 in it, so I wanted the kick to kind of take up that bottom end when the 808 wasn't in there. So I let that kind of just ring out a bit more. Now with the snare, there's actually 3 different snares in this. And again, the same idea is that I didn't want to just use the typical 808 like drum kit. I wanted things to sound a bit different. So this is the snare pattern. So again, it's just got a few like little stutter things happening here and there just to make it sound a little bit different, give it a bit more movement. In addition to that, there's the hats, which is pretty much your kind of basic like trap sounding hats where it kind of stutters a little bit and kind of pitches up, pitches down. In addition to that, I've actually got a fill, like a roll that happens at the end of each phrase. That is not a sample. I've actually created that myself. I've created that using a snare, a tom, and a hi-hat, an open hat, sorry. And I've just added some reverb on the last hit of that. And so how that sounds all together. So all of that together, again, I've used like original, like live, almost like sounding samples because I wanted to, again, like fuse that 1970s sample with some new sounding stuff, but I wanted to have a bit of a bridge. And so I wanted to make sure that in the fill, at least, like the drums sounded a bit more authentic. So with all of that, there's a few more elements of the song. Of course, okay, yeah, I'm sure you all want to hear the 808, so this is what the 808 sounds like. So it pretty much, like, it follows the same pattern as the kick, and then just adds this just massive low end, pretty much in the second half of each verse and in the chorus, again, just to give it a bit more, like, just kick when those parts come in. Next to that, there's actually a section of the song which probably gets highlighted more towards the end of the song, which is the keys. Again, this is something I wanted to add in to just give a bit of color in the song. It actually is throughout the song in the choruses. This is what that sounds like. And I actually played all of this as well. It's no sample or no loop. And then pretty much the last main instrument is this weird sounding vocal thing. Now, this sample, I can't tell you where I got it from. But it's like with vocal samples, like people that know my production work know that I use a lot of vocal samples. And the reason why I do that is because, again, as a young producer, and as probably just a young fan of hip hop music, there was a few albums that really like just meant a lot to me. One of them was No Way Out by Diddy or Puff Daddy. Second one was College Dropout by Kanye. And the third one was Life After Death by Biggie. All of them had like soul samples in them. But College Dropout in particular was the first time hearing these samples of vocal that were pitched up. And it was so unique for Kanye because everyone's like, oh, here's the dude that's got the chipmunk sounding tracks. And it was like sounded weird at the time and people kind of like gravitated towards it. But I can guarantee you if it wasn't for that album, what we have in EDM now with all the vocal sampling and, you know, the vocal cuts and slicing and even just using vocals as synths, that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Kanye's College Dropout album. That for me, like, has resonated so much because there's a certain feel that you just get from vocal samples that it acts as an instrument. So this one in particular, I just think it fitted the song really well. So yeah, so that sample almost kind of sounds like Future or Migos or Young Thug. But what I also wanted to do was make sure that it wasn't like completely audible at the same time. So I threw a whole bunch of reverb on it, just so only certain parts of that sample are audible. So it's pretty much just that one line of like, I'm looking at you and I cannot be wrong. It was that line that kind of like gave me like the idea of the song, and I just thought, yeah, that fits. So I kind of just tried to build everything, you know, with that in mind. So pretty much all together, how this thing sounds. That makes for one crazy song. Let me know what you think. If you're a producer, what else would you have done to the song? What would you have added? What would you have removed? Check out the video, check out the song on all of your digital providers. I will be doing a breakdown video for the lyrics as well as the actual video clip in itself, because some people have been asking questions about what the heck is this video all about. So I thought I'll let you guys kind of have that conversation first, and then I'll explain later. So thank you guys so much. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll check you guys out soon. Peace.